fit by hearing them speak. So, yeah. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pacharane Nivashesha Sunyavadi Paschacharya Shatarane. Yeah. So I would like to say that if I hadn't come in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books and his movement, my life would have been a total disaster. I'm very, very grateful because I was in a very bad place, and I came in contact with Prabhupada's books, read what he had to say, and then on several different occasions, and I met his followers, his movement, and it really gave me a second chance in life. And I'm eternally grateful for that, even if I don't make this much spiritual advancement, which that's what might happen, but just even on a material level, I owe the fact that I'm even sitting here as a live, living human being, to Srila Prabhupada, because if I hadn't come in contact with Prabhupada's books and his movement, his followers, I don't even think I'd be alive now, or if I was, I'd be in a prison or a mental institution or something like that. So I really, literally owe my material life to Srila Prabhupada, and whatever, if I'm able to make any spiritual advancement, of course I owe that to Srila Prabhupada. And I hope that with whatever remains, whatever I have left in this lifetime, I hope I can be a better disciple of Srila Prabhupada and a better follower. So, since we're really early, and as I said, I want to save the important speakers for when more devotees are here, I'll just continue a little bit. This morning we saw that presentation from the BBT. That was the BBT's Vyasa-Puja homage. And that was really enlivening for me because, I was observing, like, here it is, Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-Puja, and I don't know if you may have noticed that each year there's less and less people. There's less and less devotees that seem to be showing up for this. So as far as festivals go, we're going downhill. And I was feeling a little depressed. I was thinking, every year there's less and less devotees, and you're on next March, etc. But then when I thought of that, but wait a second, here in New Dwarka, as far as BBT goes, as far as book distribution goes, every year we're increasing. I don't know if any of all of you are aware of it, but for the last 5 years, the BBT about 5 years ago they made this idea that every temple should increase by 10%. And New Dwarka's done it. Every year for the last 5 years, we've increased by 10%. And so, when I started thinking in terms of that, what's going on in this community as far as book distribution goes, I started feeling really encouraged and enlivened because we are actually like a machine geared up to fulfill that desire of Srila Prabhupada. Our temple president is also the North American BBT trustee, Srila Prabhupada. You have Suradas as the international BBT treasurer. He was a book distributor back in the early days. He's dedicated his life to, seeing that Prabhupada's books are distributed. Naikatma, our property divisions manager, was a book distributor, an airport book distributor back in the 70s. Archita, also he's dedicated his whole life to designing Prabhupada's books, working for the BBT. Vijay is our World Sankirtan minister, book distribution minister. For the last 20 years, he spent 6 months out of the year in this temple, encouraging devotees in book distribution and encouraging devotees all around the world. I personally have, work with a team of 6 or 7 devotees, and they're all totally sold out to distributing Prabhupada's books. We have Satchidananda Prabhu, who's been going out on book distribution steadily, regularly, since 1978, 79, 40 years. And Prema Sankirtan, he came here from Europe in 1998, I think it was. He practically didn't speak a word of English, but he was so determined to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books that he learned English. And last year he was #1 in North America. And that's not, and these other years, it's not just that wasn't a fluke. He's been up there every year. He has a desire and ambition to be the number one all-time book distributor in the history of ISKCON, and I think he'll do it. This guy's so determined. I was surprised to see him here this morning. When I didn't see him here earlier, I thought, oh, he probably went up to the observatory, Griffith Observatory, to distribute Prabhupada's books because it's such a, Saturday's a good day. And, it goes down. We have Gauranga Prem, disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Chinese devotee, one of the early Chinese disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I don't think, he doesn't have a material mind. He's just, he just knows the instructions and it's just, so, the devotee, all these boys I'm working with, and there's a couple of brahmacharis, they're just totally serious, totally sold out. So I just wanted to let everybody know that if you want to support something that's pleasing to Prabhupada and that's legit, you can support New Dwarka's Sankirtan book distribution program, because this is a legit program. I've been working with it now myself here for 23 years, and it's serious. The people who are involved are serious. We're up and running. We have 2 traveling Sankirtan vans, and devotees are constantly going out distributing books, in other parts of the country, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, et cetera, Montana, Nevada, Arizona, you name it. We're going out there, and so anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that. So I'm on the whole very encouraged by being here in New Dwarka, because we really are, we're very taking Prabhupada's instruction and desire that his books be distributed very seriously here, and we've made significant progress. We're doing it. As I said, it's no small thing to increase by 10% every year for the last 5 years, and that's what's happened here in New Dwarka. So I just want to let everybody know that, and I don't know if it's exactly that's what you're supposed to be saying on a Vyasa-Puja offering, but I know that we saw that thing that film this morning was very important to Prabhupada, and I just want to let everybody know that we're not disregarding that. We're taking that very seriously here in New Dwarka, and we are doing something about it, and have been doing something about it for as long as I've been here. And I just thought it would be good for all the members of the community to understand that. So thank you. Now the real homages begin. That was just me filling in time. The first speaker will be Amala Bhakta Maharaj, who has something very, very ecstatic and enlivening to share with us. And thank you very much. Let's have a round of applause for Amala Bhakta Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that'll be better, I think.
You can fold it.
Good. Can you put it underneath?
You want to see?
No, underneath, yeah. That's much better. I can see the. Hare Krishna. I would like to speak to everyone about my personal experience with Srila Prabhupada, but I had very little experience. I had one interview upstairs here, which lasted for about a half hour, and that was the last. Of course, I saw Srila Prabhupada many times, but actually personal interview and answering personal questions just that one time. And I've talked about that a number of times. So I wanted to come in with something different, something new, and something that everyone would feel attracted to, based on the fact that it is about Srila Prabhupada and one of the most meaningful and most exciting experiences that he had in his all 11 years that he was preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world. This is the pastime in which the devotees in Bombay tried to purchase land, the same land that is there now, from a Mr. N. And Mr. N had a lot of political connections and publicity connections, press connections, attempted to cheat the devotees out of the down payment that they put for the land, and accusing them of doing things which they had not done. So that was when Srila Prabhupada actually got into this fray, into this conflict. And he would not give up until he actually gained the land. And he had to fight furiously with plenty of conflict, plenty of difficulties, plenty of trials and tribulations. So I want to read that pastime, which I think everyone will find exciting, interesting, suspenseful, and very surprising in various parts. And it explains a lot of the motives that Srila Prabhupada had for his getting so involved, so interested, and absorbed in this particular situation. So this comes from the Lilamrita of my audiobook ministry. I only recorded one of the books of the 6 or 7 that Satsrup Maharaj wrote, and that was the one, Let There Be a Temple. So I'm going to be reading from that particular pastime, and this begins, it takes place in November of 1972. Beginning. To establish many deities was one of Srila Prabhupada's prime contribution as a world preacher. Sorry. And when he would visit each temple, he would always stand reverently before the deities, taking their blessings, and that he would offer prostrated obeisances. Be humble, he would instruct the devotees. Always remember you are dealing with Krishna. And sometimes he would be unable to suppress his ecstatic symptoms of love for the deities. Tears would come from his eyes, or his hands might tremble, or his lip might tremble. And sometimes he would be unable to suppress his ecstatic symptoms of love for the deities. Through his representatives, his many disciples, he worshipped all these deities. But in the case of Radha Rasa Vihari, his involvement was more direct. Having taken India as his own managerial duty, he considered caring for this deity his specific responsibility. Prabhupada's fighting spirit to keep the land was so keen that he sometimes appeared to be fighting for fighting's sake. He sometimes even compared Mr. N. Does everybody know Mr. N's real name? Okay, well, I just wanted to find out. So I will say the word Nair instead of Mr. N, since we all know. It was called N at the time because we were trying to offset any possible lawsuits that might come. However, after some time, just everybody knew about it because it was in the newspapers. Prabhupada's fighting spirit to keep the land was so keen that he sometimes appeared to be fighting for fighting's sake. He sometimes even compared Mr. Nair to the demon Kamsa in Srimad Bhagavatam, who had repeatedly tried to kill Krishna. Just as Kamsa had employed many minor demons in his attempts to kill Krishna, so Mr. Nair had employed demonic agents like lawyers, friends, and hoodlums. Krishna's killing of demons like Kamsa was his pastime, or lila, and he enjoyed it. And Prabhupada, as the servant of Krishna, was fully absorbed in this fighting. He was vigilant, militant. When Mr. Nair bluffed or frightened the devotees, causing them to back down, Prabhupada held his ground. He took naturally to the fight, Krishna and Krishna's mission were being challenged. Never before had Prabhupada been so threatened or met such active enemies. In New Delhi, when he had been selling his Back to Godhead magazines, he had often met with brusque words, and in America, people had ignored him and occasionally heckled him. But no one had seriously attempted to stop his preaching, which is what was going on here. Here, however, was a demon working actively to cheat him, to destroy his preaching, to disperse his disciples, and to displace his deity. He was forced to fight, and his disciples, if they were to understand his mood, would also have to fight. So this experience taught many of the disciples exactly what was expected of them by the example that Srila Prabhupada showed. Prabhupada was acting as the protector and the parent of the deities and of ISKCON Bombay, which is now known as Mumbai. As he had described in the Nectar of Devotion, many great devotees have an eternal relationship with Krishna as his protector. When as a child Krishna had fought the serpent Kaliya, Krishna's mother and father had been plunged into transcendental anxiety. They had seen their child entangled in the coils of the serpent and, fearing for Krishna's life, had wanted to protect him. The eternal mother and father of Krishna always worry that Krishna may meet with harm, and when danger appears to come, their natural anxiety increases many times. In this way, they show the most intense love for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's mood was to protect Radha Rasa Vihari, those are the deities in Bombay, and also his Krishna consciousness movement. Although he knew that Krishna was the supreme protector and that nobody could oppose his will, out of a protective desire, this is his rasa, out of a protective rasa is a mood, it's a mellow, it's a feeling that one has which is strong to do something. It could be parental, it could be a friend, it could be servitorship. So his, although he knew that Krishna was the supreme protector and that nobody could oppose his will, out of a protective desire to spread Krishna's glories, he feared that the demon Mr. Nair might harm Krishna. It's very interesting how, although he knows that Krishna is supreme, nonetheless, he takes this up as a personal, loving service. Prabhupada's feelings of anxiety and protectiveness extended to his disciples also. Although out of duty, he often criticized and corrected them privately. Before others, he usually defended and praised them. We always called it getting the sauce. When Prabhupada would give you some criticism and you felt that you really didn't do anything very harmful, and you looked as if you were offended, Prabhupada would raise his eyebrows to let you know, yes, it is offensive, and don't forget it. So Prabhupada's feelings of anxiety and protectiveness extended to his disciples also. Although out of duty, he often criticized and corrected them privately. Before others, he usually defended and praised them. When Dr. Patel, a Bombay physician, had criticized the way the devotees were living, not protecting themselves from mosquitoes, Prabhupada had said that because his devotees were liberated and did not identify with their bodies, such things did not trouble them. Prabhupada saw his disciples as children with little worldly experience. They did not know how to deal with rogues and could be easily tricked. But if the son was gullible, the father would have to be shrewd and strong to protect his family. As protector of the devotees and of Krishna's mission, Prabhupada wanted to establish good housing so that his disciples could serve Krishna in comfort, even elegance. Prabhupada's spiritual master, no, I don't have to read that. Mr. Nair could not know what motives were driving Srila Prabhupada, nor could he imagine the full ramifications of opposing Krishna and Krishna's pure devotee, even though the danger of such a position had been explained in India's most famous classics, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Ramayana. Prabhupada was fighting on the side of Krishna. Therefore, Mr. Nair was opposing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. by Prabhupada's disciples' cancellation of the agreement. Let me backtrack. An agreement had been made to purchase the land in Bombay, where it is now, and a down payment had been made. After some time, Mr. Nair began to make some critical and lying or false accusations about the disciples and said, no, I'm not going to sell you the land, and I'm going to keep what you have paid me, the down payment. So that was fighting words for Srila Prabhupada. This was, it was thievery, it was against the law, but he felt he could get away with it only because he knew many influential people. He was involved with the press. By Prabhupada's disciples' cancellation of the agreement, the contract, which was for the deed, ISKCON's legal position had been weakened. But Prabhupada had faith that if the devotees just maintained possession of the land, their position would remain strong. At the same time, he urged the devotees to preach more. They should not think that without a temple, they could not preach. So he arranged for another big Bombay Pandal festival. We all know what a Pandal festival is. It's a festival with, where the devotees come up and they preach. And Prabhupada came and he preached the movement of Bhakti Yoga and the progress that he had made. So he wanted to broadcast that to gain, not only to give information, but to gain the affection of many of the illustrious persons, the high-level, high-placed individuals, which would help him, hopefully, in this particular case. So he arranged for another Bombay festival downtown, which proved to be a great success, with 20,000 attending nightly. During the last week of January 1973, Prabhupada met with Mr. Nair at the residence of Mr. Mahadevia. Although Prabhupada's lawyers had filed a criminal case against Mr. Nair, Prabhupada wanted to attempt an out-of-court settlement. It's usually cheaper. He had always been gracious and charming with Mr. Nair, and Mr. Nair had always appeared responsive and polite. But this time was different. Gone were the smiles and friendly words. The two were remaining barely civil to each other. After a few minutes, Prabhupada asked his disciples to leave the room. Speaking in Hindi, Mr. Nair began accusing Prabhupada and the devotees of being connected with, hold your breath, the CIA. I will come on Monday, said Mr. Nair tersely, with a check for 2 lakhs to pay back your down payment. So he said. All right, Prabhupada replied, if you don't want to part with your land, then we will leave. But think before you do this. Mr. Nair continued his accusations. You people are calling yourselves the owners of the land, but you are just a big disturbance to the whole area, getting up at 4 in the morning and all these things. Prabhupada said, we do not claim to be the owner, Prabhupada replied. Krishna is the real owner. I am not the real owner. Krishna is already there on his land. Why are you bothering us so much? Simply take the money and give us the land. Or if you want us to vacate, then prepare the check. Prabhupada had been speaking with restraint, but now his tone became very angry. Bring out your check and we will vacate tomorrow morning, he said. No, we will vacate tonight. Give us our money back. Have you the money? Mr. Nair shouted, I will remove the deities myself. I will break the temple and remove the deities. Mr. Nair then stormed out of the room. Heavy. That week, Mr. Nair was hospitalized after a severe heart attack. 2 weeks later, he died. When Prabhupada heard of Mr. Nair's death, he was at first silent. Then he quoted a verse Prahlad Maharaj had spoken following the death of his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu. Modeta sadhur api vrishika sarpa hatya, which means even a saint is pleased when a snake or a scorpion is killed. Yeah, So, Mrs. Nair, although not as legally astute as her late husband, carried on the fight. Even after seeing this, Krishna just took him out, and he can take her out, but she couldn't get the message. Mrs. Nair, although not as legally astute as her late husband, carried on the fight, and her lawyers, eager to collect their fees, pursued even more intently than she the litigation to drive out ISKCON. In April 1973, at ISKCON's instigation, ISKCON's case came before the High Court. That's the highest. There were tactical delays, however, and month after month passed with no decision. Prabhupada did not commit himself to construction on the land because he had no deed and no assurance of one. He toured the West, returned to India, but still nothing had happened to resolve the matter. Life in ISKCON Bombay was peaceful, but progress remained stunted, the outcome uncertain. Then one day, without warning, Mrs. Nair launched a violent attack. On the morning of June 1st, while the devotees were attending their routine duties, a truck drove onto the Juhu property. A demolition squad had come to dismantle the temple. Somehow, Mrs. Nair had convinced an official in the city government to authorize demolition of the temple, a modest structure of brick and steel reinforced concrete. When Giriraj attempted to show the officer in charge a letter establishing ISKCON's rights, the man ignored the letter and signaled for the demolition to begin. Soon more trucks arrived until nearly 100 demolitionists working with blowtorches and sledgehammers swarmed over the property. The demolitionists mounted ladders and began breaking the roof of the temple hall with sledgehammers. Others used torches to cut through the steel supports. The plan of demolition squad was to knock out the steel supports of the Kirtan hall and proceed methodically toward the deity house, wherein Radha Rasavihari stood. The devotees tried to stop the demolition, but somebody take out the noise in the back, please. Close the door. Is it closed? Okay. That's fine, but if it interrupts the reading. The demolitionists I already said that, sorry. The plan of the demolition squad was to knock out the steel supports of the Kirtan hall and proceed methodically toward the deity house wherein Radha Rasavihari stood. The devotees tried to stop the demolition, but policemen soon appeared on the scene and, working in pairs, would grab the dissenters by the legs and arms and carry them away. This is women and men. Police dragged the women away by the hair, while tenants on the land looked on. Some were glad to see the demolition, although others were sympathetic. Out of fear of the police, however, no one moved to help the devotees. One devotee, Manishvi, ran to a telephone and called Mr. Mahadevia, who, along with his friend, Mr. Vinod Gupta, rushed to Hare Krishna land to find the police dragging off the last protesting devotee by the hair. She had been trying to close the doors to the altar to protect the deities when 3 policemen had wrestled her away. Mr. Mahadevia rushed to the house of a sympathetic tenant, Mr. Acharya, and phoned his brother, Chandra Mahadevia, a wealthy businessman and friend of Bal Thakur, the leader of one of the most influential political parties in Bombay. Mr. Chandra Mahadevia informed Bal Thakur of the emergency. At the instigation of a Hindu and under the order of a Hindu municipal officer, a Hindu temple of Lord Vishnu was being demolished. Mr. Thakur in turn informed the municipal commissioner, who denied knowing any of the order to demolish the temple, and who in turn phoned the local ward office that had sent out the demolition squad. The ward office sent a man to stop the demolition. The The officer arrived around 2 p.m. just as the demolition squad had cut through the last pillars and were dismantling the roof above the deities. The order to stop the demolition was given to the ward officer in charge, who then stopped the demolition squad. Prabhupada was in Calcutta at the time of the attack. And when the devotees reached him by phone, he told them to organize the local ISKCON sympathizers and life members and protest the attack by mass publicity. They should also expose the persons responsible. This would be very effective against Mrs. Nair and her party. The next morning, a photo of the demolished temple appeared on the front page of the Free Press Journal with the headlines, quote, "Unauthorized temple demolished by municipal authorities." Devotees began counteracting the bad publicity. Mr. Sadar Jiwatal turned his downtown office into an ISKCON office, and he and the devotees began the campaign. Despite the unfavorable propaganda, many Indians were shocked at the violence, and the municipal corporation unanimously condemned these officials responsible for the attack on a Hindu temple. Devotees working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Sada Jiwawal's office phoned the newspapers, wrote letters and circulars, and contacted possible sympathizers. Mr. Vinod Gupta, a member of the Jan Sangh political party, which favored maintaining India's Hindu culture, joined with Kartikeya Mahadevya and others to form a Save the Temple committee. Mr. Gupta published his own leaflet declaring ISKCON to be a bona fide Hindu organization. As Giriraj met with and elicited the support of government officials, many of Bombay's leading citizens appreciating the authenticity of the Hare Krishna movement began to show sympathy and offer assistance. Thus, the plan of Mrs. Nair and her lawyers backfired. Although they had been thinking they were dealing with only a mere handful of young foreigners, they soon found themselves facing many of Bombay's most influential citizens. Srila Prabhupada predicted that the results would be positive. A few days after the incident, he wrote, "The demolition of our temple by the municipality has strengthened our position. The municipality standing committee has condemned the hasty action of the municipality and has agreed to reconstruct the shed, which is what we had, at their cost. Not only that, the temporary construction shall continue to stay until the court decision is there as to who is the proprietor of the land. Under the circumstances, we should immediately reconstruct the deity's shed. Barbed wire fencing should be immediately done to cover the naked land. And if possible, immediately in front of the deity's shed, a temporary pandal should be constructed with our materials. If it is so done, then I can go to Bombay and begin Bhagavad Parayana to continue until the court decision is there. This is my desire," Srila Prabhupada said. Prabhupada also asked Giriraj to give full coverage of the temple demolition in his Hare Krishna monthly journal to life members. Prabhupada himself wrote an article for the monthly describing his movement and the events leading to the attack on the temple. He condemned the Bombay municipality for having the audacity to smash our temple against the law and principle of religious faith. A clique in Bombay, he said, had conspired to drive the devotees from their land without returning their money. Again, without returning their money, the down payment. And he asked for sympathizers and life members of the Krishna consciousness movement to come forward and help him in this difficult hour. The devotees began to see the entire course of events as Krishna's mercy, since many life members were now rendering valuable service to Prabhupada and Lord Krishna. In the past, Prabhupada had stayed in the homes of many life members, preaching to them and their families, convincing them of his sincerity and of the noble aims of his movement. These friends and members like Bhagubhai Patel, Biharilal Kandelawala, Vijatan Mohata, Dr. C. Bali, and others were acting not simply out of Hindu sentiment, but out of a deep respect and affection for Prabhupada. Giriraj, working with Sada Jivatal, tried to convince the municipal council to authorize the rebuilding of the temple structure. While doing so, however, he discovered that Mrs. Nair had that very day, a Friday, filed for a court injunction preventing ISKCON from rebuilding. Justice Nayan told Giriraj that he did not want to grant Mrs. Nair's request and that he would hear the devotee's case on the following Monday. So she was rebuffed. This meant that the devotees had from Saturday morning to Monday morning 2 days to rebuild the temple. The devotees reasoned that although they had no actual permission to rebuild the temple, there was as yet no law to stop them. If Justice Nayan ruled against them, then to rebuild would be very difficult. They decided, therefore, to use the weekend to rebuild. Mr. Lal, a former contractor, helped arrange materials, bricks, mortar, asbestos sheets. Mr. Sethi offered a crew of laborers. At 8 p.m. on Friday, the masons began their work, continuing throughout the night despite the rain. And on Monday morning, when the judge learned of the new temple, he declared, "Well, what is built is built. No one can destroy the temple." When Prabhupada heard the news, he considered it a complete victory. The temple had been rebuilt, and public opinion was swinging strongly in ISKCON's favor. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. All glories to the Bombay Temple ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Amala Bhakti Maharaj, for that. That was a wonderful selection. You did a wonderful job reading it, and it was just exactly what we all needed to hear. Thank you. That was ecstatic. We'd like to call on Mother Kriya Shakti to speak next. Does that work for you, or we usually alternate between the men and the women? So. Say it again. Yep. Jai. Thank you. We're doing pretty good for time. We go till 11:45. It's 10:25 now.
Okay.
I guess everybody keeps it to within 15 minutes maximum, or maybe probably 10 might be better, and everybody will get a chance to speak, everybody who wants to. Thank you.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavari Pastachati Starni. So I've written a short poem in honor of Srila Prabhupada. We were the music makers. We were the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, yet we were the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seemed. Searching for a master to guide, lost, searching for a captain to guide, lost without a master to heal at his side. And therefore today is thrilling, the prophecy spoken in past days fulfilling. You journeyed on a boat meant for cargo to a far western shore that had no hope for tomorrow. And now, as predicted, the multitudes are enlisted in spreading love of God as our spiritual father persisted. Our captain was found, our master had spoken. You gave us a vision amazing of the godly house you were raising. From your books and lectures came a divine foreshowing of the land to which we were going. It was in your heart, Srila Prabhupada, that this vision had broken, and its brilliant light did not depart. One look, a nod, or a word you had spoken lit a flame in another one's heart. All glories we praise you, Srila Prabhupada, arriving from the distant, dazzling, transcendental shore. Wake us from this slumber, bring us to Sri Krishna's land of bliss, and renew our memories of yore. Teach us your songs, new numbers, and things we dreamed not before. Oh, we with our dancing and singing, ceaseless and sorrowless were we. The glory about us is clinging of the glorious future we see. Our souls with high music ringing. O dear Master, forever let us be, dwelling in our chanting and singing, always falling at your lotus feet. One breath of your inspiration becomes the life of a new generation. A wondrous thing your transcendental message brings, unearthly, impossible seeming, that the soldier, taxi driver, hippie, and peasant are working together as one, till your dream shall become the present. Your work in this world will be praised by poets and writers, historians, and broadcasters, the captain of our fate, your divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Jai Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you.
Thank you, Mother Kriya Shakti. Prabhupada said there's 26 qualities of a devotee. One is poetic. So and Prabhupada said devotees are poetic. So we can see on occasions like this how devotees have become empowered to glorify Prabhupada so beautifully. That was nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Our next speaker will be Druta Karma Prabhu, who needs no introduction. So I won't give him any.
Somebody's glasses here. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept this verse offering. You appear on this day in 1896, and a learned astrologer predicts this child in his 70th year will cross the ocean without fear. A great saint he will become, founding 108 temples, not just one. Then in the year 1922, you first meet your divine guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who orders you to cross the sea, to teach in English the Western folk, suffering under Maya's yoke. The precious message of Krishna Bhakti by Sri Chaitanya's merciful Shakti. You spend a lifetime in preparation for your mission, feeling separation from your beloved spiritual guide, to whom you wrote, and he replied, repeating just before he died his original request that you should journey to the West. You were still in India in 1948. You wrote to Gandhi, this man so great, trying to convince him before 'twas too late to focus his mind and concentrate on spreading to humanity the Gita's lessons, but he replied not and was killed by assassins' weapons. That same year, this sinful soul was born into this miserable world forlorn to continue to reap my karmic fate in America's New York State, in the town they call Schenectady, disconnected for eternity from my real identity. I traveled here, I traveled there, I traveled almost everywhere. And then in the year 1965, in New York City, you did arrive. And at 26 Second Avenue, you planted a seed that quickly grew under your expert guidance and your great finesse into your International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Unaware of this, I continued my desperate rambling, risking my soul in fruitless gambling on the futile hope that I would find in this world some happiness and peace of mind. Yet somehow by some cosmic arrangement, I was being led, even in my derangement, to a rendezvous with you, your divine grace, by whose mercy I may someday get out of this place. I was captured by your books and the pakoras of your cooks. Those cooks are very dangerous, aren't they? In 1976, you wrote your Miami Temple president, under whose guidance I was serving as a resident, a letter in which you said the most important words I ever read, words which, if never written, would have been my greatest loss. I accept Michael Cremo as my disciple. His name is Druta Karma Das. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. You will forever be my boss. Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. Was that great or what? Brilliant, humorous, enlightening, transcendental. Thank you. Our next speaker will be Sarvani Devidasi. She was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973 and did service at Laguna Beach Temple as a book distributor. So, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Budale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nivishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshitarne. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to your divine grace. Another year has passed since I last attempted to pay homage to your saintly appearance in this material world. As I reflect on the past 40 years, before and after I encountered your divine grace, it has been increasingly and repeatedly proven that you have graciously, in your humble way, made it possible for the light of the ancient eternal Shastric truth to become available to the darkest and most fallen regions of Kali Yuga. Among the countless teachers, philosophers, scientists, and others who have speculated and expounded upon this material nature and reasons for its existence, you stand superior. With great effort and energy, you have successfully given the whole world transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, by revealing his pastimes and spiritual abode. You have supplied this knowledge through your many books, lectures, and letters, which give the answers to such questions as, who is God? Who am I? What is my relationship with God? How and why was this world created? Why am I suffering? How does one find eternal lasting happiness? How does one break out of this repeated cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age? How does one qualify himself to go back home, back to Godhead? Your wisdom in teaching others is indeed unsurpassable, and through your tireless efforts and mercy remain available for future generations to come. Srila Prabhupada, in your lifetime you have exhibited a level of inexhaustible knowledge, sincerity, wisdom, and transcendental experience that is rarely seen in this world. What to speak of the love and dedication you have demonstrated in wholeheartedly serving the wishes of your spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in helping him to propagate Lord Chaitanya's mission by spreading the holy names to every continent, town, and village on the planet. In fulfilling your service to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, you encountered many obstacles, yet despite any hindrances in your path, you never wavered in your determination and full reliance upon Krishna's merciful intervention to succeed. You were fearless. Through your example, you gave us glimpses of how Krishna's magical potency was determining the outcome of any pure attempt to serve him, demonstrating to us how Lord Krishna was ultimately in control of all endeavors. In this way, you helped to increase your students' faith, enthusiasm, and determination to serve you. As I increase in years, becoming elderly myself, I continue to be amazed at your fortitude and miraculous ability to have served in such a superhuman capacity that you did while traveling the world many times over. Now it is up to each one of your devoted students to follow in your footsteps to the best of their ability and to stay true to your teachings and instructions. Please continue to bless our humble attempts. The world is indebted to you, as am I, dear Srila Prabhupada. How fortunate it is to have encountered your divine presence and mercy this lifetime. I can only humbly pray that I may someday please you and actually become qualified to serve your lotus feet and continue to somehow serve Lord Chaitanya's mission in future lifetimes, begging to remain your humble servant with heartfelt sincerity and loving gratitude, your spiritual daughter, Sarvani Devi Dasi.
Thank you. You know, in 1967 in San Francisco, Prabhupada was about to give a class, and it was on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he asked us, does anybody know who Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is? Because that was the pastime. And nobody was answering, and then Govinda Dasi raised a hand, and she answered correctly. She gave, said who he was and gave an explanation. So then Prabhupada chuckled and said, see, girls are smart. Girls are smart. So here we have another example of that. The women in our movement, they're also brilliant scholars and orators. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Satyanarayan Das. He was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1972, and he's the BBT director for the Far East and Middle East books. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvasesha Shinivari Paschatya Sitarne. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances beneath the dust of your divine lotus feet. All glories forever unto you, Srila Prabhupada. As we ready your Farsi Persian translation of Bhagavad Gita as it is for printing, which we pray will happen soon by the grace of the Lord, the extent of your eternal glories is revealed at every moment. Just as we began writing this offering, I discovered that today is the birthday of the 12th century Persian poet-astronomer Omar Khayyam. One of the oft-quoted quatrains from his famous Rubaiyat reads as follows: "To wisely live your life, you don't need to know much. Just remember two main rules for the beginning. You better starve than eat whatever, and better be alone than with whoever." When I read this, immediately my thoughts ran to you, Srila Prabhupada, and how and how immeasurably and inconceivably fortunate we were to have met you by your divine grace. For while Omar offers general and self-acclaimed wise advice with his two rules, he leaves out the most important points of all. Excuse me. He leaves out the most important points of all. Specifically, what should we eat and who we should be with. Nor could we find any positive advice about this elsewhere in his presentation, nor from the recorded history of his own life. In absolute contradistinction to this, Srila Prabhupada, not only did you never leave out the most important points, but you always imbued your advice and your direction with the eternal absolute truth of every matter, something that was clearly unobtainable by the poet. Specifically in this case, you instructed us exactly what to eat and what not to eat, and taught us how to turn those acceptable foodstuffs into transcendent nourishment, able to liberate us from the bonds of material existence eternally. This, if we truly wish to live our life wisely. And regarding who we should be with, you did not leave us with be alone and avoid whoever. You precisely define whose association we must seek out and whose we must avoid to, again, live this life wisely so that the next one will be eternally wise and blissful. Most wonderfully, Srila Prabhupada, you personally exemplified the ideal manifestations of everything you personally taught us to do, and that you are still teaching everyone to do through your transcendental literature. Therefore, we humbly pray that your Farsi Bhagavad Gita as it is will be printed as quickly as possible so that the Iranian people who are living, studying, and visiting everywhere in this world will have the great fortune to be able to obtain this true eternal wisdom, and in their native mother tongue, so that they may take it into the deepest parts of their hearts. eternal wisdom that you and only you have given us, Srila Prabhupada. How can we possibly thank you for saving our eternal lives, other than to give those lives for your service? All glories are forever unto you, your divine grace. Your humble servant, Satyanarayan Das. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. You know, there was one occasion where Prabhupada said, if somebody preaches in the Muslim countries in the Arabic language, if I get this wrong, you could correct me, I take the dust from their lotus feet and place it on my head. Is that right? So we'd like to thank Satyanarayan very much for taking up this very challenging service of preaching in these countries.
Well, one clarification, it's the distributors that are getting that, because they're actually giving the books. They're actually distributing the books. And so they're getting that inconceivable blessing, plus the books wind up going back to the Middle East, because the tourists and the students who get the books all over the world, including in Europe, they're so moved by the connection with the devotees that they want to share them with their friends and family back home. So that's how the books are getting into the Middle East now.
Jai, thank you. Haribol. Okay. So our next speaker will be Lavanya Mangala Devi Dasi from Pacific Northwest. And she'll be reading the offering of the Seattle Temple, Mata? Yeah, Seattle Temple from the Vyasa-Puja book.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you on this glorious Vyasa-Puja celebration. All glories to your sincere disciples and followers. So I'm going to read the Vyasa-Puja offering from Seattle Yatra, and it was a bit of a collaboration with Kanti Mati, a Prabhupada disciple, and myself. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to you on your divine appearance anniversary. Without your purity of purpose, we, the hippies and countercultural generation of the Cultural Revolution, would never have had access to the sublime philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So-called swamis and bogus yogis turned us off, tainting any taste we had for metaphysical inquiry. Without the causeless mercy of a genuine guru such as yourself, we would have given up our search for higher consciousness. Our gratitude is unfathomable. My heart is forever beholden to you, and not a day goes by that I am not grateful for your eternal guiding presence. You ventured into unknown territory, and through your peerless faith and sanctity, you entrusted the sublime mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to boys and girls like us. How fortunate we are to have received this priceless opportunity to begin the practice of Bhakti Yoga. We saw Srila Prabhupada every day in Mayapur during the 1977 Gaur Purnim festival. My 2-year-old son, Sridham, was running back and forth to Srila Prabhupada on his Vyasa-san, grabbing flowers from his lotus feet and throwing them at the devotees. I tried to catch Sridham, but couldn't reach him through the crowd. 11 Sannyasis surrounded Srila Prabhupada, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam about Prahlad and Lord Nrsingadev, how the Lord was roaring so loudly that all the demigods were frightened and no one could calm him down. Srila Prabhupada was listening intently, At the point in the story where Prahlad walks up to Lord Nrsingadev and offers him a garland, and the Lord then pats Prahlad on the head, Prabhupada opened his eyes wide and looked around the temple room saying, "This is perfect Krishna consciousness. The devotee is offering prayers and the Lord is patting the devotee on the head. Why do you make it so difficult?" Then he closed his eyes and spoke no more words. Later, Srila Prabhupada watched the Age of Kali play with Sadarupa and other devotees acting. He loved that play. Goddess Kali was lying on a velvet-covered lounge couch wearing a sexy black velvet outfit. Her servants came when she called them. When she asked, "Where's Madness?" the personality of Madness, played by Prajapati, hopped up behind her couch and did something really silly. Prabhupada broke out laughing, but quietly to himself, not out loud. After the play, he left, and we didn't see him again during the festival. Srila Prabhupada told Bahudak Prabhu, Dinabandhu Prabhu, and Sukadev Prabhu that they should take care of their temples for the rest of their lives. Sometime around 1972, Sukadev was sent to manage the Seattle temple. He was such a good representative of Srila Prabhupada, always glorifying Prabhupada, giving scholarly classes and cooking, deeply absorbed in pleasing Prabhupada. Without Sukadev, I would not be a devotee. He tricked us into surrendering. Sukadev left his body in November 2018, and we feel great separation, not only from a dear friend and spiritual teacher, but from the immense love for Prabhupada that he nurtured in his heart. Srila Prabhupada, you came to Seattle only once in October 1968 in order to open the temple. We begged you to return, but you were often ill and could not. We were pioneers in your new movement. Without the devotional fire given by Krishna, Krishna's pure devotee, so many souls fell away after you left this world. However, your lessons and transcendental personality are ever manifest if we carefully tune ourselves into your media archives, read your books, and associate with your sincere disciples and true followers. I know that you see how wonderfully our temple has grown and how nicely the worship of our many gorgeous deities is going on. It's all due to your causeless mercy and love, without which we would still be lost. Thank you, my beloved Guru Maharaj, for saving our lives in this most fallen age of Kali. Please bless the Seattle Yatra with increased love and enthusiasm for your legacy, so that we may carry on your spiritual revolution for decades to come. Your servants in Seattle, Washington, USA, written by Kantimati Devidasi.
Thank you, Mata. That was excellent. Thank you. Our next speaker is Madan Mohan Prabhu, who joined in 1971. And he's a very quiet person, but if you give him the opportunity, he will speak Krishna Katha to you non-stop without saying one word of nonsense. So he's very good association, and we're very glad he's here today with us. I think he's celebrating the 45th anniversary of his initiation today.
Yeah, actually today is it was in 1972, August 24th. It was in the other room where the studio, the Fate Studio is now, and we had the initiation, and so it's special today, 45 years ago. So I wrote a little something. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nevasesha Sunyavadi Paschita Desitarne. When you said we came to America, it seemed like incorrect grammar, because it appeared that you came by yourself on the Jaladuta. The other devotees they said that that's the way a sannyasi talks. But for me, when I have reflected on this statement over the years, it's come down to me to mean to me all the personalities you brought into my life. There's a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22:83. Krishna Bhakti Jana Mula Hoya Sadhu Sangha. Krishna Prema Jani. I'm not so good with the Sanskrit. Okay. But the translation is, the root cause of devotional service to the Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still the most essential. Using this verse in conjunction with the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-18 by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as a real irrevocable fact. It appears to me that our sadhana and our goal are like the verse in 10:14:3, as Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport to the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24:69. He says, one may remain situated in his own place or in his own occupational duty and still lend his ear to receive the message of the Lord from realized souls. And the Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. And we are opening centers all over the world to give everyone a chance to hear the message of Lord Krishna in order to go home back to Godhead. By the divine personalities that are almost too many to count, and even now, when we recall the list of their names, we remember their teachings that you brought to us. And as Bhakti Vinod wrote, thou art still living and sound. In each of your books, we meet many divine personalities and hear their teachings along with your purports to make sure we get it right. Of course, through Krishna book, we met Krishna and his whole family, and the five great personalities in their teachings, in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami in the Nectar Devotion. The Bhagavad Gita is an introduction to the Mahabharata and all the great souls, along with their teachings given to Arjuna, that form the very basis of our restructured perception. Then the very book, the king of books, the Srimad Bhagavatam, our very means of conquest over the material potency, Jai. Whoever can count these personalities' instruction compiled with perfect descending authority. So we thank you for coming to America and bringing the best of all the people. So I tried it first. This is an abbreviated version. I tried at first to put down the list of all the personalities that Prabhupada has introduced us to, that we know. We hear a couple words and we can think, oh, we know who said that. Oh, that was Narada Muni. Oh, that was Lord Rishabh-Dev. We know all these different personalities. So when Prabhupada said we came to America, I think of it like that he brought all these personalities into our life, the best personalities that exist in all existence. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for bringing everyone to us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I've been assured by the temple authorities that we can go till at least 11:45, maybe a little bit longer. So that means if everybody, we have about 9 spots, 9 5-minute spots, and we have about 9 speakers. So if everybody keeps their homage to about approximately 5 minutes, then we're going to be okay, and everybody will get a chance to speak. Our next speaker will be Maheshwar Prabhu. For those of you who don't know him, he has a preaching center in Ojai where he fights a never-ending battle against impersonalism and Mayavadi philosophy, and does a weekly class, and produces a brilliant newsletter. At least I think it's every couple of weeks. So he'll be speaking. Thank you.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devan Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Sunyavati Pashkata Deshitarane. So first of all, I don't usually sit on this exalted seat, so I'd like to thank the devotees for trusting me to sit in Veda Vyasa's seat. And I'm going to glorify Prabhupada in a way that is actually extremely important, but I think it's often overlooked. It's a subtle quality, but to do that, I'm going to give you a 5-minute version of a much longer story about how I actually joined the movement. And I think some of the spots along the way, some of you will probably be able to identify with in your own story. In my case, I was a student of the 60s, 70s, ex-Vietnam War. I was going to get drafted, but then they ended the draft, so that was some magical thing that happened. And I was studying industrial design at the University of Kansas, and I was at that point in my life where it was like, there's got to be more than the Protestant church that I went to. It just didn't add up. And so I aggressively went out and started looking into all the other things I could literally get my hands on to, which included going to all the other different denominations of Christianity at first. I went out to eat pizza with the evangelicals. I read Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. Eventually ran into Be Here Now. Reading everything I could get my hands on, trying to find something that made sense. Went out Sufi dancing. I looked into communism. It's like, why not? It's got to be something better than what I've been exposed to up to that point. Studied the Tao. Went out to Buddhist meditations, trying to see if there was something there. That wasn't really responding very well. I wasn't responding very well to that. I even read Bhagavad Gita, but of course it wasn't Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. It was Penguin Classics, which was like about 1/4 of an inch thick. It was a tiny little book. And quite frankly, I was very disappointed and even upset, because it seemed like back in the anti-war days, I was reading a book about war, and I just absolutely could not understand how a book about war had anything to do with spiritual maturity. So eventually, after 2 years of school, I dropped out and went traveling to Europe, where I actually ran into the Sankirtan party in France, and ended up going to the French Temple, and Srila Prabhupada's big Macmillan, we call it the Mac 72, I think nowadays, had just been printed. And of course I was traveling out of a knapsack, and there's no way I was going to put this huge book in my knapsack. But I had sort of taken a vow, and the devotees had convinced me at the time, you need to read this book. I don't know what I said to them. I probably said some of the things I just shared with you here. But they made it very clear to me, you need to read this book. And so when I came back, went back to school, got re-entered back into school, and miraculously the book was actually at the University of Kansas bookstore, because it was printed by Macmillan. And there was a copy on the shelf, and that was for me, and I picked it up and I read it. Okay, let me see here. So of course it changed my life. I would read it every morning, I'd eat my cereal and just turn the pages, and I was just being literally transformed for reading this book. Eventually was stuck in this dilemma, because my parents were putting all this pressure on me to finish college, but I also realized that Srila Prabhupada was getting older, and somehow or another I knew that if I wanted to become his disciple, I need to make a big change, a radical change that would just send all sorts of tsunamis through my family, parental consciousness and so forth. And I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do, but somehow or another, Srila Prabhupada heard my prayers, and within about 2 or 3 months after those intensive prayers started, 30 devotees from the Radha Damodar bus party knocked on my door And I realized at that point that was an answer to my prayers, and I just dropped out of college. So, but one of the things I did when I dropped out of college, it seems sort of weird and silly at this point, was I had actually kind of negotiated with the devotees that if I actually drop out of college and take on all of the flack I'm going to get from my parents, that I could go to India. And I really wanted to go to India. And of course they said, yeah, whatever you want, that's fine, we'll do it, don't worry about it, just become a devotee. So I did. I dropped out of college, I became a devotee. And then eventually, okay. And then at that point we had just built, the ISKCON had just purchased the 55th Street Temple in New York. And Radha Damodar eventually came in as the main operating system for the temple there. And I got bogged down in New York. I still wanted to go to India. I was thinking like, I did Sankirtan for a year, and now I'm in New York, and now they had me working on the temple facade, which was a huge project. They made the inside of the 55th Street Temple. It looked like the Radha Govinda Mandir in Vrindavan. And then I got bogged down with the store, building the store and building the restaurant, and eventually working on the Roth carts. And it didn't seem like I was ever going to get out of New York. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted me to go with him to Gita Nagari, which he wanted to make as successful and as well known as New Vrindavan at the time. And it just seemed like I was never going to get out of all of this stuff in the United States, and I started really agitating to go to India, and I kept on saying, but you guys promised me I could go to India, you guys promised me I could go to India, and I was leveraging that concept of a Brahmin's word must be true, and you guys are all Brahmins, so you got to send me to India. So anyhow, I eventually got to India on my own steam, but here's the part where all of this is leading up to. Somewhere before I actually got on the plane to go to India and stay there for 3.5 years, I'd heard that if you write Prabhupada a letter, he will respond. And so somewhere in all of my angst of feeling like I was never going to get out of New York, or Gita Nagari, either one, that I wrote Prabhupada a letter. And of course, I was reassured by the devotees that I'd get a response. And my letter, of course, was, I want to go to India, why can't I go to India, I'm stuck here in New York, blah, 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 blah. And so eventually, I got there, but I never got the letter. I never got a letter from Prabhupada. And quite frankly, I completely forgot about it. Totally, completely forgot about it. Until 2018. Like 45 years later, after I wrote the letter. And I was scrolling through some website, probably ISKCON Desire Tree, where they had all these, the records of all the letters that Prabhupada had written. And I was looking for something. And I noticed my name was on this list, and I'm going, what's my name doing on this list? I never got a letter from Prabhupada. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one with my name, so I'm going, there's got to be some mistake here. So I actually clicked on it and opened it up. And sure enough, I got the letter from Prabhupada 45 years later, where he had said, yes, you have my blessings, please come to India. So the reason why I think this is important is it really reinforces how meticulous Prabhupada was about everything. And something that I say this very genuinely, something I think we all need to be very careful about, how he was so particular about every one of his disciples. I mean, I'm still a nobody, and yet my little letter, he took the time. It wasn't a long letter, it was only 1 or 2 lines. He took the time. He made the time to respond. So that's my glorification. It's a tremendously exalted quality, but I think sometimes we forget how the little things can be so important. So thank you very much.
Jai, thank you. Hari Bol. Our next speaker will be Jai Jagadish Babu, who joined in 1971, 1972, and is a brilliant scholar.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, I offer my sincere obeisances at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, your movement is all-inclusive. It allows anyone and everyone to reconnect with Krishna whether or not they have the slightest inclination toward spiritual life. At your 43rd annual Ratha Yatra festival this month in Los Angeles, over 10,000 souls were purified by honoring prasadam offered to Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. Your Ratha Yatra festival so transformed the atmosphere that even a few blocks away, a drunkard sprawled on the sidewalk shouted to everyone who passed by, "Happy Hare Krishna Day! Happy Hare Krishna Day!" Bhakti Rasayan Sagar Maharaj said in a recent class here that all of the deities we worship in ISKCON essentially manifested from your heart, for you carry Radha and Krishna within your heart of hearts at all times. Our good fortune is inestimable, as would be our fate had we not somehow or another crossed paths with you, with your movement, with your followers or your books. Unlimited fortune versus unlimited misfortune. Sally Agarwal, your host in Butler, Pennsylvania, responded to a letter that you wrote to her from New York. She offered some suggestions for the nighttime starvation that you were suffering and said she sometimes cried thinking of you all alone in New York. And you once said, "I cannot begin to describe the difficulties I underwent, nor do I wish to." Your international society, Srila Prabhupada, was born out of your deep sacrifice and your even deeper desire. Nothing as great as ISKCON, a house that the whole world can live in, could have emanated from a person who had the slightest desire for self-aggrandizement. Remarking on your humility in a Janmashtami class just yesterday in your Mountain View temple, Srila Prabhupada, Giriraj Maharaj said that your divine appearance was actually meant to be on Janmashtami, but you delayed it by one day so as not to draw attention away from Krishna. And yet, with my incorrigible mind, I sometimes choose idle time wasting over 100% engagement in your movement. In one purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada, you compared that to burning sandalwood for heat. In other words, using something of great value, our human lives, for a much lesser purpose. But somehow, Srila Prabhupada, by your grace, out of the cesspool of my false ego, very gradually is emerging someone who appreciates the good qualities of your followers and aspires to possess those same qualities. Prabhupada, your followers are my saviors. Your temples, likewise. Your books, even more so, not to mention your deities. And you, Srila Prabhupada, are the fountainhead wherefrom this glorious movement sprang. And by the pure desire of your heart, the entire earth shall one day experience a transformation never before seen or even imagined, for your holy appearance was the divine spark that ignited the spiritual revolution that will become the 10,000-year golden age of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada, on this, the 123rd anniversary of your divine appearance. Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhu, thank you. So our next speaker will be Mahashakti Prabhu. We've got about a half hour left, and I've got about 7, 8 people who would still like to speak, so if everybody can keep it to 5 minutes or less, we appreciate it. This always happens, no matter how hard we try to kind of portion it out, but it'll work out. Thank you. Haribol.
Dearest Srila Prabhupada, Dearest Srila Prabhupada, thank you, thank you, thank you. Koti Dandavats at your lotus feet. Thank you endlessly for coming to this Western countries and chanting Hare Krishna. I was swimming in stool and very happy when I heard you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and by the grace of Lord Krishna, I became your disciple and servant while I was just a young boy. How fortunate that I was given an entire life to chant Hare Krishna and serve your mission. You told us to give just this one life to Krishna, and we listened. Material life is never giving us anything good for its hard work, but you never cheated us. You gave us the real thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Koti Dandavats at your lotus feet. Some of us were attracted to you and your message. Our hearts were filled with love, real love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Koti Dandavats at your lotus feet. Just as you have said, every day we chant, it increases our spiritual bank account. You taught us with simple metaphors, but that was your genius. We were spoon-fed. We became nourished. Soon the whole world will resonate the names of Lord Krishna because of you. The whole world will again become a joyous place to live. Even the terrible Kali Yuga can be transformed into Goloka by the grace of you. No sin is too powerful to overcome the bright sunshine of Krishna and his holy names. The entire world is benefiting from your darshan and your eternal books. Nothing and no one is more attractive than God, Krishna. When the less fortunate raise their eyes to the Lord and chant Hare Krishna, their hearts will melt with bliss, and they will fall in love with the transcendental blue boy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Koti Dandavats at your lotus feet. In just 10 short years, you conquered the entire world. There is no man, woman, or child who has not been affected by the chanting of the holy names. The entire Kali Yuga is transforming because of your potency. Even the upper and lower planets are affected. How wonderful that you appeared and engaged us in your eternal service. Koti Dandavats at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you, Prabhu.
Jai.
Our next speaker will be Rudra Das, one of Srila Prabhupada's illustrious artists for many, many, many years.
So now before I start, I apologize for my voice. Is struggling with chronic bronchitis, so I hope it's a little bit audible, understandable. And I see that this year a few devotees were inspired to write a poem, so I was also inspired to write a poem, not so much unlike Druta Karma's nice offering. Mine is also a glimpse into a heartfelt glimpse into my spiritual journey. So I call this Unfathomable Mercy. In a world full of sorrows, we tried to excite some passion, enjoyment, just increasing our plight. No future, disappointment was all we could grasp. Hopeless, defeated, we cry out at last, but no one is there to relinquish our suffering. Then a door from the east, an ambassador offering a new way of seeing, divine mission carried. Prabhupada, you showed how east and west could be married. Wisdom from India, practiced and proven. Could it work on young hippies, their disaster's own choosing? A glimmer of hope midst our drowning and thrashing. You threw us a rope lest our futures came crashing. Springing Maya's depths like a struggling trout, we escape her cruel waters of illusion and doubt. Behind only blackness, no lament for that parting. Ahead bhakti practice, a new life is starting. New plans, new horizons, and finally some meaning. But it's frightening, uncharted, and we require your weaning. And lucky for us, you are selfless in giving, providing the blueprint for spiritual living. Now everything's changed, the Supreme Lord's been added. Spiritual love, we never knew that we had it. Lord Krishna in pictures, in verses, in chanting, all food that we eat, in our work, in our dancing, purity unwavering, you're fresh like a flower. True freedom we're savoring, transcendent knowledge. Unleashed from your hand, we follow, we love it. Your teachings are grand, there's nothing above it. A soldier, true hero, your deeds predefine you. Compassion, true intelligence, how lucky to find you. Who else in our lives showed the fault in our ways? Who thought they were righteous, you corrected to save? A treasure so bright shines on those ones sincere. From your books, from your lectures, we read and we hear. Our inspiring mentor, now we preach to others. Humanity united, God sisters, God brothers. You replenished our lives, how can we repay? By giving to you our service each day. Continued devotion, we hope we can stay. Though paltry, we offer and pray it's okay. Perseverance in bhakti can deliver us then. So please send me where I might see you again.
I got a lot of goodies, so I can only give a little bit right now. So anybody who wants to ask me about Prabhupada, I traveled with him in Europe, in India, in Africa. I got to ask him questions, and I could see into the future there'd be a need for these answers. So some of the things I asked him, if he was present in his pictures. He said, if you think of me, then I'm there. I told this to Punya Prabhu, and Punya does really nice Manas Puja. He approaches the deities in his heart. He approaches the great personalities, not only of the Vedic culture, but of all the great spiritual teachers, and he does puja inside his own heart. So, Prabhupada's teachings move on into the hearts of his devotees. He felt things very deeply. I mean, he was traveling and spreading, planting the seeds of Krishna consciousness all over the world. But he'd answer letters, and he'd hear the problems, and he was hurt by them. He would feel the mistakes of the leaders, and I'd hear him correct them sometimes. He'd run a walk in Mayapur. He said, I come to encourage, and you come to discourage. One leader came to complain about another in Mumbai when Prabhupada was getting his massage. And Prabhupada said, I give them a little power and they go do this, do this, do this. He said, no. He said, first you get them to love you and then they'll do whatever you want. And I'm watching the devotee, I'm thinking, is he really understanding this, or is he thinking, this is a clever ploy? So everybody's got to learn at their own rate. We were on a walk in Paris. This is more for new devotees. Yogeshwar mentioned to Prabhupada there was a devotee in New York who claimed He needed more personal association. All the advanced devotees, we've only been devotees a few years, claimed that he claimed he needed that kind of advanced, that extra association. And Prabhupada said, who is that rascal? He's not chanting his 16 rounds. He said, all in all, and he said it not with any arrogance, in a very beautiful way. He said, all in all, I had maybe 15 days personal association with my Guru Maharaj. So on another walk in Paris, he turned and faced a beautiful part of Paris. Boy, the parts of Paris that are just gorgeous. These old estates, beautiful tree lines. So there's good things that came from the king, but there's some bad things too. But on that walk, he turned and faced the devotees and he said, I want you all to become Krishna-conscious philosophers and defeat these rascal scientists and philosophers. Of course, the most important thing to Prabhupada was that we as individuals develop our love for Krishna. And that's going on in our own hearts, how we relate, and how much energy we give Krishna. And this might appeal to the mothers. What would be the worst thing that your child can do to you? When they leave home, they never contact you again. And that's kind of what we do to Krishna. So over the years, the philosophy for me is you take the good, the bad, the ugly, and the bizarre of your life and you share it with Krishna, because Krishna wants your association. Other things, people always trying to repress me. I was, and some of them are not even qualified, educationally qualified. And they were trying to repress me and enslave me. So I said, Prabhupada one time, I said, sometimes I fight with my god brothers. Is that bad? He said, no, not necessarily. It was very practical. Another addendum to that story about Mumbai, when things were going really bad. To me, Prabhupada was my general, okay? He was my generalissimo. And we have a Persian devotee here. They had a very powerful army at one time, and Alexander the Great, with a much smaller army, defeated him because his brilliance was that he can make adjustments in the middle of a battle. So he defeated a much larger army and conquered Persia. So when all this was going on with Mumbai Temple, Prabhupada just one day said, so we can turn this into a big parking lot and send out trucks all over India to distribute books, or to preach rather. So that was Prabhupada's pragmatic approach. This is the way a great general thinks. A great general doesn't think about a particular battle as being all in all, but he sees the big picture. And if he loses a battle, it doesn't mean he gives up on his cause. And that was Prabhupada, very pragmatic in that way. And he could be very kind too. A lot of us became devotees. We were very young. The testosterone was flowing. We were meant to, pump out children and be married and stuff like that. And the ladies especially so, because it's more their dharma. And we stepped forward to serve Prabhupada's cause because we knew it was helping the world. So, I lost my point. Brain cells are dying en masse. Too much LSD in my youth. But Prabhupada, he appreciated the devotees, and because of that, now I remember. So I was feeling really bad because I was really lusty inside, but I was a good brahmachari for 7 years, and I got discouraged about, making it. I thought maybe I'll be a sannyasi when I'm 35, but it wasn't going to happen. But I was feeling it, and Prabhupada was so gentle with me when I went to him one day, and he said, you just follow the 4 regular principles and chant 16 rounds, and basically it'll all work out. He was very kind in that way. Of course, he was very fiery, too. Some people try to paint Prabhupada as, like one of those boggle dolls, you'd see in India, fat Brahmins, boggle doll. He'd get angry, and he'd get disturbed, but his anger was gone the next day. It was just his nature, and you can't change your nature that much. But there was never any vindictiveness. And he was very straightforward. A French scholar came and written a book on the loves of Lord Krishna, and he came to see him in Geneva. And the devotees had to practically drag him there, but he showed up, and they'd read some of his book to Prabhupada, and the man said, well, it took me 7 years to write this book. And Prabhupada, in a very dispassionate way, he said, so, and still there are some mistakes. So for him, it wasn't to hurt the man, but to open a dialogue. But the man, because of his ego, he took it as an affront. So the room kind of turned kind of cold, and after a while he left. And after he left, Prabhupada said, so we speak the truth, so we make enemies. Of course, Prabhupada was never anyone's enemy. I mean, his essence is in the way he signed his letters. Your ever well-wisher. That really is the essence of Prabhupada's philosophy, and that's what he wanted for us to become, the ever well-wisher. And when the Bhagavatams were being published, he asked for 2 separate books to be published, Prayers of Queen Kunti and the Prayers and Teachings of Kapila Dev. And even though we were trying to put the emphasis on getting the whole Bhagavatam out, he wanted those books. And if you read the Teachings of Kapila Dev authorizes deity worship, that he's present in his deity. But some verses down the line, he said, I would rather you see me in every living entity's heart. So that really is the next stage of Krishna consciousness, is to start seeing each other and seeing him in each other's heart. And it's really a challenge. It really is a challenge. Anyway, let's see what else I can remember about Prabhupada. Last time I saw him.
Prabhu, that's good.
Oh.
We got.
Okay. You got to make it longer.
Yeah, I'm going to try. If I'm doing this next year, I promise I'm going to do a better job.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
I promise.
Because there's a lot of people who want to talk who have memories.
Archita usually does it. He just asked me last minute this morning to do it.
Of instructions and stuff like that are much more important than...
But anyway, that was ecstatic, and I really apologize for cutting you short. But thank you. Hare Bo.
Right. Thanks for your service, guys and girls.
Our next speaker will be Vijay Prabhu, who was not initiated by Srila Prabhupada, but he's done so much, surrendered so much to Srila Prabhupada, and did so much service for Srila Prabhupada. He's been the world minister for book distribution for the last 20 years and a leading book distributor, and he is a Prabhupada disciple in heart.
Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishnasda Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Pastachan Desatarane. Someone was speaking about, just now, that if you want someone to do something for you, get them to love you, and they'll do anything for you. So there's one nice pastime, one of my favorite pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. Bombay, 1970, Prabhupada had asked the temples to send their best men from each temple. And one of them was Giriraj Swami now. He was brahmachari at the time. Now his parents were very wealthy, and he was the only son. So he went to India, and for him to become a Hare Krishna, that was already tough. Now he's in India. He's on the other side of the planet. So they decided to go and try to get him back to America. So they flew over to Bombay, Giriraj Brahmachari, picked him up, and immediately the father is trying to convince him to go back to America. And he was attached to Prabhupada. Of course, his real father. He said, no, I want to stay here in India. So he tried some more, and he could see he's not getting anywhere here. So he asked, can you arrange a meeting with me and your guru? I said, yeah. So the arrangement was that his mother, his father, and Giriraj, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's servant was there as well. So the father said, this disciple you have, he's my only son, and my wife and myself, we have great affection for him. It's very painful for us that he's here in India. Can you please send him back to America? So Prabhupada asked Giriraj, do you want to go back to America? No, Prabhupada, I want to stay here. So Prabhupada said to his parents, what can I do? You don't want me to force him, do you? No. So it was understood he's staying. So Prabhupada's genius. So he said to Giriraj, why don't you go with your parents to the foothills of the Himalayas, Haridwar, and nice resorts there, spend a week with them. And Giriraj said, yeah, sure, I can do that. So the parents are very happy to go to the Himalayas, and be with their son for a week. So they were very happy with that. So they did that for a week, went back to Bombay, and Giriraj wanted them to get some more association with Prabhupada. A moment's association with a pure devotee. So they already got about an hour, but he wanted them to get more. So he arranged another meeting with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada didn't preach at all. Sometimes preaching means don't preach. So he was just talking small talk, differences between America and India, and making some jokes, and just being a friend, just being a nice gentleman, a nice person. And they left so happy. They were so happy. Everybody was so happy when they left. And the servant said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you amazed me. They were so upset when they came here. And they left and they were so happy. Everybody loves you so much, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, that's because I love everyone so much. That's Prabhupada. That's why this movement spread all over the world, because of the love of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai! Thank you. That was super ecstatic. So we're doing good. We have 2 speakers left and we have 10 minutes left. So our next speaker would like to call Mother Shraddhanjali Devi Dasi to speak.
Hare Krishna. So I was asked to speak, and like many people, especially women, my first instinct was, oh, no, I can't. But one quality I greatly appreciate about Srila Prabhupada is his boldness and his courage. And so in trying to obtain some of that, I chose to speak. I've never met Srila Prabhupada personally. I'm too young. But in my almost 40 years as a devotee, what I've come to appreciate is the legacy he's left through all of you. I see examples of him through the kindness of my mother, her dedication to everybody. I see his example through my father and all the material opulence he's been able to obtain, and yet his greatest happiness is in serving Srila Prabhupada. I've seen his example through the humility of somebody like Mother Akuti, who works tirelessly, physically, mentally, without cessation. I see his example through my Guru Maharaj, Srila Jayapataka Goswami, who's faced unfathomable dilemmas in his life, physical, mental, in every way, and he's still choosing to serve Srila Prabhupada. My prayer is that I may be emboldened, even just an ounce, to learn about you, Srila Prabhupada, to learn about Nitai Gauranga, to be an instrument and a messenger to my children of compassion, kindness, and strength, to be an instrument of the same 3 things to the whole world, and to be able to give all the blessings that I've been able to receive and more to everyone else. I thank you all for your service, and I pray that I have not committed any offense, and if I have, I apologize. And I pray to serve you all in the best of my capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mata. Mother Brajarani, please. Did you want to? Yeah.
Thank you very much once again for encouraging me to speak and get this opportunity. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Padleshmada Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Karvani Prasharne Nivisheshnavadi Pasha Deshtarine. So I just want to take this opportunity to show my deep gratitude and appreciation to Srila Prabhupada. I met him in 1971 since I was a little girl. I was actually a little envious of him in the beginning because he sent the devotees and they were so nice and they were giving me all the attention. I was just a little kindergarten kid and they spent all day telling me Krishna stories and kirtans, ecstatic kirtans, and suddenly when Prabhupada came, they didn't have that time to give me all the attention. I was like, who's this person, you know? But as soon as I met Prabhupada, he showered me with so much mercy, so much love that it just changed my heart and my life. And ever since then, you know, he's always kept me in his shade and his shelter. Even if I tried to leave, he comes in different mystical ways and dreams in person. And, you know, says, do you have faith in me? Doesn't matter what anyone else does. Do you have faith in me? And he said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I have faith in you. Then stay, you know. So thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada, for keeping me always under your shelter, and I beg you to continue to fill my heart and mind with Krishna, because if I have that, everything else is in place. Hare Krishna.
So Mataji was the last scheduled speaker, and we're about 1 minute away from when the Pushpanjali ceremony will begin. Is there anybody that'd like to say anything in this last minute? Wrap it up. Okay. Savas is here. Yeah, she's coming forward right now. Come on. Hurry up, Mata. Okay, so this is Mother Vrindavaneshwari, Madan Mohan's good wife. They've been both devotees since about 1972. You might get cut off by Rabindranath. I can't do anything to stop that, but go for it. Do the best you can.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastabhadle Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Bacharne Nirvishesa Sinyuvari Paskicha Desatarne Jai Srila Prabhupada Jagat Guru. I pray to you to learn how to pray with hopes and dreams to see you one day. My heart, like a stone, ever so cold, yearns to please you, but seems a far away goal. O Prabhupada, you left your instructions perfectly. I pray I may follow them more seriously. In my youth, you spoke of birth, death, old age, and disease, now becoming a reality to hear your plea. My brothers and sisters disappearing rapidly, when will I be serious and chant exuberantly? O Prabhupada, you stunned me with your presence and powerful words, entering my heart and changing my world. My faith is here as Lord Jagannath smiles, even though I know it may take me a while. Your divine teachings you brought to show us the way, how we can chant, dance, and feast, and see Lord Krishna one day. Thank you for saving me. Jai, glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, so the next part of the program is Pushpanjali. I guess everybody could stand up for that. They'll distribute some flowers, and somebody else will take over as the MC.